What's going on, everybody? How's it going? This is Watch, and in this video we'll be doing a full-on review of the brand new Nvidia Shield. This is the new gaming console from Nvidia. It's basically taking their tablet and their portable lineup of gaming systems and compressing it into a small form factor console that will work perfectly in your living room or anywhere where you have a TV and you want to have a couch gaming experience with a controller. So I've been using this thing for a couple of weeks now. I've been really liking it, but there are some caveats to the overall package that this thing comes in. So let's go ahead and talk about the good, the bad, and really determine if the Nvidia Shield is worth owning. Now, first things first, in terms of the look of the Nvidia Shield console, it looks great. No complaints there, very angular kind of design. Now, on top of the Shield, we have an LED strip light that you can customize the color, as well as a lot of venting at the back and bottom of the console to keep things as cool as possible. It's also quite quiet. You can game on it for hours without hearing a peep. The biggest factor is its form factor and design. It's very thin and probably measures about half as much as the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Now, looking at the back of the Shield, we have plenty of ports and connectivity options. You have things like a gigabit Ethernet, which is essential for game streaming. You have a couple of USB 3 connections for charging the controller as well as data transferring. And thankfully, we have HDMI 2.0 interface, which is going to allow you to view ultra high definition content, specifically when it comes to consuming photos and videos in 4K, whether that be online or local. And lastly, we have a micro SD card expansion slot, which is going to allow you to expand the internal memory. Now, the Shield controller is pretty much the same controller that we found on the Shield tablet last year, so pretty standard stuff in terms of control interface. The gamepad is perfectly fine when playing most of your mainstream titles, but anything that requires a keyboard and mouse is a little bit tricky to play on the controller, even though it has a touchpad down below. My only major concern is that it has no rumble feature, so no haptic feedback system like you found in the Xbox One controller and indeed the PlayStation 4 controller. Some of the highlight features on the controller is if you tap the Nvidia button at the top of the controller, you'll pull up the Google search system, which will allow you to search the web and indeed your console itself for different games and applications. And if you press the circle button and hold it in, you'll actually pull up the built-in DVR functionality as well as the live streaming to Twitch, which is an awesome feature as well. Now, internally, this gaming rig is supposedly pretty powerful. It's using Nvidia's own Tegra X1 chip. This is a brand new CPU GPU combo, which is based on the Maxwell architecture. It actually has a 256 core GPU as well as an 8-core CPU based around a 64-bit ARM architecture. Now, in terms of memory, both of the versions of the Shield come with 3 GB of RAM, but they do differ in terms of internal long-term storage. If you get the Pro version, you have 500 GB of internal memory, and if you get the standard Shield, you get under 16 GB of internal memory, which is certainly not enough. Thankfully, you can expand the memory on all the consoles using the micro SD card expansion slot, as we talked about before. Now, in terms of the networking and wireless technology, we have the latest generation 802.11 AC 2x2 MIMO card. This is a dual band card that supports 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, which is really darn essential. We also do have Bluetooth 4.1 compatibility as well if you want to connect any headsets or other Bluetooth devices to the console. Now, in most cases, even if you have a really good network, you're still going to probably want to connect it to a gigabit Ethernet system to get the most out of the game streaming technology built into here. Now, that's all fine in terms of specifications, but the real thing that we want to understand and address in this review is how does this thing actually play games? What's the graphical performance like? And what's the experience like when you're streaming PC titles to the Shield itself when you're playing on your television? Now, I've been using the Shield for a couple of weeks now, and generally speaking, my experience has been generally okay. The experience is not perfect by any stretch of the imaginations. There's hiccups all the time and stuttering, even if you have a really good internet connection and a fast AC wireless network. Now, in my scenario, when I moved from a wireless to a wired connection, all of my game streaming issues were completely solved. Now, that might just be my router, which is not the best right now, but generally speaking, that's probably what I would recommend if you want to get serious into streaming your PC titles to the Shield console itself. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to mention the sources of games that we have. I think there's about 4 major sources that you can get that is currently available right now. The first source is obviously the Nvidia Shield optimized games. This is essentially games that have been ported to the Shield console itself to work perfectly with their Shield controller. And these are cross-compatible throughout all of the Shield devices, whether that be this console, the tablet, or the portable system that they released a number of years ago. Now, the games in this category are fairly lackluster. There's only a handful of titles that are kind of worthy of any notoriety. You have older titles such as Half-Life 2, Portal, the Borderlands series, Doom 3, etc. And most other games are kind of casual games that you're going to find on the Android library. Now, speaking of the Android library, the third source of games actually comes from the Android Google Play Store. Now, here you're pretty much playing games that are essentially designed for a smartphone or tablet, anything revolving around the Android platform. And most of these titles are compatible with the gamepad controller itself. Now, the other 2 sources of games are based around the streaming platforms. The first is based on Nvidia Grid, which is basically a streaming service that Nvidia is providing to all of their Shield owners. And right now it's actually free. It will be eventually paid, but it's kind of awesome that you have over 40 different premium and popular game titles that you can stream right then and there on your stream console. Definitely nice to see there. Nvidia is definitely putting a lot of money and effort into the Grid system, and hopefully it'll be established and work a little bit better in the future, because right now, even if you have a decently fast internet connection, most likely you're still going to encounter some lag and some stuttering and obviously some pixelation. Now, most of the games are going to be rendered in 720p, but generally speaking, game streaming is not fully optimized for this console, and it's certainly not as refined as other game streaming services that are available out there right now. Now, the last source of games is actually probably one of the most useful feature of this console for me personally, and that's the game streaming from your PC to the Shield console. Now, we've seen this in the Shield Portable and indeed the tablet throughout the years, and it's just gotten better and better, but really it's dictated by how fast your computer is. As long as you have a fairly recent Nvidia graphics card that's able to play all the different titles at fairly playable frame rates, you're going to have a good experience as long as you have a fast network as well. Now, is this a perfect solution? I would say probably not. There are still games that I encountered that didn't work, that might be just driver issues and things like that. There is also a feature where you can pull up Steam as a game and use it as big picture mode, and you can enable some of the games there as well. And I've found some success in doing that, but generally speaking, this is not a perfect be-all, end-all solutions when it comes to streaming your PC games to your TV. But again, I have to say that after a couple of days of usage, I found this to be probably one of the funnest things about the Nvidia Shield. Having the ability to basically take my entire library of PC games and have it on my TV is pretty darn awesome. Even though it's not perfect, it's a cool and handy feature that I think a lot of people will find value in. Now, the thing that I really want to do is do a little comparison on the difference between the PC game being played on the PC itself and then comparing it to the streamed version that the PC is sending out to the Nvidia Shield. What's the response time like, and what's the picture quality like in terms of the graphics themselves? Now, the first thing that we're going to do is take a look at the latency and kind of lag that you get when streaming games. So on the left-hand side, we have the PC game running on the PC, and on the right-hand side, we have the PC game being streamed on to the Nvidia Shield. And we're just going to move around, and you guys can see if there's any latency at all. Generally speaking, we have a LAN connection, so fairly decent, playable overall response time. There's not really a major lag between the two. Obviously, there is going to be a slight lag, and the picture quality and contrast ratio is going to be better when it comes to the actual PC title played on the PC, versus you do get a little bit of loss in terms of sharpness and detail when looking at the stream game, but generally not bad at all, certainly playable and very comparable to the next generation consoles. Now, just to kind of summarize everything we talked about so far, let's go ahead and do a pros and cons list like we always do in all of our reviews and really determine whether the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. We'll start with the pros. Now, the first thing I like about the Shield is its form factor. It can pretty much fit in anybody's living room, anybody's entertainment stand. If you have a space for it, most likely you'll have no problem in accommodating this thing. Additionally, the console stays very cool and quiet, which is also really nice to see. Now, another thing I like about the console is the fact that you get Nvidia Grid streaming built into it. Right now, it is a free service, but eventually they're going to be going with a subscription model like you see with Netflix. But at this point, I think there's a good game selection with plenty of popular titles, and I'm sure as more people adopt the Shield gaming platforms, this library will grow and the service will become better and better. Furthermore, we didn't really talk about too much, but this is a media consumption device, so you can stream all of your television shows, all of your movies through Netflix and things like that. You have plenty of options for multimedia coverage, as well as YouTube and all your social media stuff that you'd find online, just packed into a little box. Nowadays, that's not really a big deal since most TVs have that built in, and you can get like small, cheap boxes that do all those features. But if you do want a simpler solution, this has all your gaming needs and all of your multimedia stuff covered in one little machine. The other cool thing about the Shield is that we have HDMI 2 interface. There's not a lot of gaming consoles or gaming platforms that have that at this point besides graphics cards. So that means you're going to have the full 4K standard at fairly high frame rates. Now, obviously, gaming is not feasible on this platform at this point, but certainly watching movies and videos in 4K is certainly a plausible option at this point. Winding down, another handy thing is the built-in DVR function. So if you want to record your gameplay or record anything you're doing on the Shield, that's definitely a nice feature there. Definitely helped me out when making this review. Additionally, we also do have a built-in live Twitch streaming capabilities, which is definitely fantastic for some of you live Let's Players out there. Now, last but not least, one of my favorite features about the Nvidia Shield definitely has to be the streaming capabilities from your PC to the console itself. I've been looking for a solution like this for a number of years, and although it's not perfect, it really meets most of my needs in basically streaming my PC titles to my television without any major hiccups, especially if you use a wired Ethernet connection. Now, moving on to some of the things that I didn't like about this Shield. Firstly, if you're going to use this on a wireless basis, it's very difficult to stream games at fairly high quality, especially when you're using the Nvidia Grid system, where the network connection has to be really solid and you really need a fast internet connection, as fast as you can pretty much get. Even at 720p, it's a difficult gaming experience if you don't have the best internet that you can possibly get with the fastest network connection as well. Additionally, when it comes to specific Shield optimized titles, there's really not a big selection there. Most of the games are fairly lackluster in terms of a selection, and a lot of the games are actually a couple of years old, such as Half-Life 2, the first Portal game, and the Borderlands series. You even have Doom 3 in there. There might be some titles that come out later on, like the Borderlands pre-sequel, but again, there's not going to be any major releases like you're going to find on the PlayStation or the Xbox One, and indeed the PC. Furthermore, I talked about how I really like the PC game streaming option. The only caveat to that is the fact that you're going to need a recent Nvidia graphics card. So if you're an AMD user, you're pretty much out of luck there for game streaming. Now, lastly, one of my biggest issues with justifying a product like this is regarding its uncertain future. Basically, a lot of people do have to get behind the Nvidia Shield lineup of products, whether that be this, the tablet, or the portable, in order for Nvidia to keep support going, to throw money at the Grid system, and to keep this thing alive. Plus, hopefully developers will get behind at making games that are specifically optimized for the Shield. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but at this point, I would have to say at $200, there's still a lot of value over here. If you want a system that allows you to stream your PC titles to your TV, it's not a bad system. It has a lot of different features in terms of the multimedia capabilities, and there's lots of advantages that this thing still presents, even though it's not a perfect gaming machine by any stretch of the imagination. But really, other than that, guys, that's really it. Make sure to leave a comment down below letting me know of what you guys think of the Nvidia Shield. Do you think it's worthwhile? I'd love to hear all your thoughts and opinions, and give us a thumbs up if you like this video. It really helps us out. And if you want to make videos like this possible, definitely check out our Amazon links down below. You can check out the Nvidia Shield on Amazon, and if you get anything through our links, it doesn't cost you guys anything extra, but it helps us just make videos like this possible because we get a little bit of kickback, which is really fantastic, helps grow the channel. Trust me, it definitely takes a lot of effort to make videos like this possible. And definitely check out the channel. We've actually done a direct comparison between this and the PlayStation 4 in terms of its graphical capabilities. So if you're interested in seeing how this thing compares against the next generation console, definitely check out that video on the main channel. But really, other than that, guys, that's really it. Thank you again for your support, and we'll see you later. Take care.